Our job is to create an environment that strengthens appropriate behavior. The most effective way to strengthen desirable behavior is through positive reinforcement. Folks, there is no better way. That is the golden rule of parenting. The most effective way to strengthen desirable behavior is through positive reinforcement. Our tendency, though, of course, is to coerce. Coercion means to compel others to act or choose in a certain way, to nullify will. That is the definition of coercion, to try and compel people to behave the way we want them to behave. I got a letter from a mother some time ago who said America is diseased with coercive attempts to manage their children's behavior. But then she ended her little note by saying, it is so hard to not buy into it. And so the question arises, why is it so hard to not buy into it? Well, I'll tell you why it's so hard to not buy into it. It's because it creates the image of expediency and efficiency. You see, if you use a coercer and you get the results you want immediately, what does that tell you as a parent? It worked. And so what are you going to do the next time that situation arises? You're going to use a coercive measure because it creates the image of expediency and efficiency, but it's only an image. I was in the airport some time ago waiting for an airplane. Seated right across from me in the waiting area was a young family. There was a father, a 5-year-old boy, I estimated him to be 5 years old, the mother, and an empty chair. And this little boy was doing all of those things that little boys do in a situation like that, squealy and anxious and bubbly, and finally this little kid let out a squeal and said, "Daddy, Daddy, when do we leave?" And the father was annoyed, and he looked down at that kid, and he raised his hand in a menacing gesture, and he said, "Knock it off or I'm going to smack you one." What did the kid do? Immediately, he knocked it off, convincing that father, I am sure, that's how you do it. But then, after just a few seconds of silent compliance, that little boy slipped off that chair, walked around his mother to the empty chair on the other side of his mother, as far away from his father, but as close to his mother as he could get. And in doing that, he delivered this eloquent message about what the fruits of coercion are, and they are these: escape, avoidance, and counter-coercion. We have learned in the study of human behavior that if we create a coercive environment or a coercive relationship, we create an environment or a relationship that kids want to get away from, that's escape. Stay away from, that's avoidance. Or counter-coerce, that means get even. We've got to be careful that we don't assume that mere compliance is change, because it is not. Children can be made to comply, but it carries with them these incredible risks that come in escape to what we call domains of risk. As children get older, they escape a coercive environment and go in to these domains of risk: drugs, alcohol, tobacco, school failure, pornography, unhealthy peers and peer groups, self-denigration and even self-destruction, suicide, sexual behavior, and so on. They escape to those things. And why do they do it? Do they do it because they don't know any better? They always know better. So many of them do it just to get even with mom and dad. A young lady was in my office recently who unfolded this litany of horrors that characterized her behavior. She was a teenager, and she told me, "I know I shouldn't be doing it. I don't even like doing it. But I do it just to get even." See, that's the long-range effect of coercion. I was recently given a newspaper article about an 8-year-old boy who came home from school with a failing grade, and his mother went out to get a switch with which to whip him. And while she was out of the house getting a switch with which to whip him, he went into her bedroom and got a gun and shot himself to death. You see, that's escape and avoidance of a very permanent type. And that's what we have got to get out of our homes. It looks like this. Coercion enters the parent-child relationship at about 14 months old, because that's when language becomes functional and children learn that there is power in one word, and that word is what? No. You all know that. You see. A parent tells a child to do something, the child says no, the parent, "Don't you say no to me, you little snip." The kid gets it and runs off and does it. And the parent says, "You see, that's how you do it. That's how you get it done." But we become intoxicated by that, thinking it worked. But what we lose sight of is that there is a cumulative effect. It grows little by little by little over the years. And at 14 and a half years old, that's when the kid can say, "I don't want to, and you can't make me. And I'm out of here. You're going to hang it in your ear." And that's when they go out and coerce by engaging in those domains of risk, you see. Just because you got the results you wanted doesn't mean that what you did to get them was the way to do it. Because you just might be planting the seeds for a very bitter harvest. And so I leave you with this caution. Do not suppose that short-term compliance achieved using coercive means leads to long-term gains, because it doesn't. Coercion produces only short-term compliance followed by long-term losses. That's what you can count on. Coercion produces only short-term compliance followed by long-term losses.